Have you ever felt like you're not smart enough to handle the challenges life throws your way? Maybe it's navigating a difficult decision, feeling overwhelmed at work, or simply struggling to understand something that seems to come so easily to others. In these moments, it's easy to feel inadequate and even question your abilities. But here's the truth: intelligence isn't just one thing. The Bible not only reveals God's infinite wisdom, but also shows how God uses and empowers people with different types of intelligence to fulfill God's purpose. When we feel like we're falling apart, we can always lean into God's perfect wisdom and understanding, which, to be honest, far surpasses anything we could ever achieve on our own. Now, there are five types of intelligence, and the Bible gives us examples for each of them. There's actually more than five, but I'm going to focus in on five and then give just a small little caveat on some of the other ones. Too often, we reduce intelligence to a single measurement, like academic ability or test scores. But intelligence is far more complex and multifaceted. Consider these five types of intelligence and how God demonstrates them inside of the Bible. We have analytical intelligence. This is the ability to reason, analyze, and solve problems logically. Joseph is a prime example of this inside of Genesis, the 41st chapter, as he interprets Pharaoh's dreams. Now, Joseph's analytical intelligence shines when he literally is giving Pharaoh these interpretations about the upcoming 7 years of abundance and famine. Now, not only does Joseph understand the symbolism of the dreams, but he also devises a practical plan to store grain during the years of abundance in order to prepare for the years of famine. Now, Joseph's logical reasoning literally saves Egypt and the surrounding nations from disaster. We can learn that God equips us with analytical skills to assess situations, solve problems, and make wise decisions, often bringing clarity to complex circumstances. Then we have creative intelligence. This is the ability to think innovatively and adapt to new situations. We find this early inside of the Old Testament, inside of Exodus, the 31st chapter, where God fills Bezalel with his spirit, giving Bezalel creativity and artistic skill to design the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, and other sacred objects. Now, Bezalel's craftsmanship demonstrates how God values and uses creative intelligence for God's glory. We can learn from here that creativity comes from God. And God uses our imagination and innovation to bring beauty and order to the world, often for his purposes. Then we have practical intelligence. I love using the story of Nehemiah because practical intelligence is this ability to navigate real world situations and apply knowledge effectively. And we see this inside of Nehemiah, the second through the sixth chapter, where Nehemiah demonstrates practical intelligence as he leads the effort to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. He carefully assesses the damage, organizes workers, overcomes opposition, and ensures that everyone works efficiently. His ability to manage both people and resources reflects strong practical intelligence guided by faith. We can learn from Nehemiah that God empowers us to apply wisdom and practical skills in ways that solve problems, build community, and ultimately fulfill God's plan. Then we have emotional intelligence. I love emotional intelligence, and this is the ability to recognize, manage, and empathize with the emotions that we personally have, as well as the emotions of others. And I think that out of all the intelligences, to be quite frank, emotional intelligence is probably one of the most important ones that we can all kind of lean into. Jesus gives probably the best example inside of John, the 4th chapter, when he meets the woman at the well. He meets the Samaritan woman at the well, and he demonstrates this profound emotional intelligence. He gently engages her in conversation. He addresses her personal struggles, and then revealing her need for living water, he shows this level of empathy and understanding that ultimately transforms her life and leads her to share the good news with her community. We can learn from this that God uses emotional intelligence to reach hearts, build relationships, and guide us in ministering to others with compassion and understanding. Now, there are different and multiple other types of intelligence, and there's one person in particular that I believe is a good example to encompass all of these smaller ones. Okay, King David, and he's very, very versatile with regards to his intelligence. I believe, again, like I said, that he exemplifies multiple types of intelligence that we haven't already talked about. King David, when it comes to linguistic intelligence, as a poet and a songwriter, David composes psalms that express profound spiritual truths. Logical and mathematical intelligence. David shows skill in strategy and planning as a warrior and a leader. Bodily and kinesthetic intelligence. As a warrior, David demonstrates physical skill and bravery in defeating Goliath and leading battles. You also have musical intelligence. David was a musician. David's ability to play the harp, he soothes King Saul's troubled spirit inside of the text. And then you also have interpersonal intelligence. As a leader, David unites Israel and builds strong relationships with his people. We can learn that God creates each of us with a unique combination of intelligences and talents, equipping us for the roles that he calls us to fulfill. Now, I've talked about people and characters inside of the Bible who have exemplified these different types of intelligence, but the truth of the matter is that God is the ultimate source of all of these things. So how does God make God's self known through multiple types of intelligence? Watch this. In analytical intelligence, watch this. God's plan of salvation from the fall of man to Christ's sacrifice shows divine reasoning and forethought. Look at the book of Ephesians, the first chapter. Creative intelligence. Look, you can go to Genesis, the first chapter, and see creative intelligence all throughout God. The beauty and complexity of creation testifies to God's limitless imagination. Practical intelligence. When you look at the Exodus story, God's provision of manna in the wilderness shows God's ability to meet needs in real world situations. Emotional intelligence. The Psalms give us great examples of this. God's compassion is evident in God's patience with humanity and his desire for a relationship with us. And then all those intelligences that David had that I just talked about, guess what? God shows it as well and has a diversity of gifts that God shows throughout God's people. And even God displays his multifaceted wisdom throughout the biblical text. Now, we all have this opportunity to lean into God's wisdom. When we feel like we're lacking in intelligence, we can find peace and assurance in leaning into God's intellect. The fact of the matter is that we are not smarter than God. The scripture reminds us in Proverbs 2:6, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. And Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. James 1:5, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. See, here's the thing. God's wisdom is infinite and perfect. While our human intelligence has limits, God's understanding knows no bounds. When we turn to God, we find the guidance, clarity, and peace we need to face life's challenges. So, to conclude, I want you to know that your intelligence is God's gift. Remember that your intelligence, whatever form it takes, is a gift from God. Whether you excel in analytical thinking, creativity, emotional understanding, or practical problem solving, you are uniquely equipped to make an impact in the world. But more importantly, you have access to a divine source of wisdom that is always available, even when you feel lacking. So the next time you're tempted to doubt your own intellect or ability, or you feel overwhelmed by life's complexities, take heart. Lean into God's perfect wisdom, knowing that God is your strength and guide. After all, true understanding comes not from our own abilities, but from trusting in the one who knows all.